Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining me today to talk about what happened in 2020 and what's going to happen in 2021 in the world of blockchain and cryptocurrencies. My name is Eliza, and I'm a reporter for TechNode. We're based in Shanghai, and I'm very happy to be joined today by 4 entrepreneurs from 4 different cities, as we just discussed. First of all, we have Yifan He, who is the CEO of Red which is the main company behind ESN. Secondly, we have David Shin from Tezos. We have Sean Lee from Algorand and Chris Ba from Solana. Thank you guys for joining me. It's been quite a year for everyone, everywhere. A lot of changes this year, and definitely in crypto, we've seen a lot of change. So I'm very happy to have you with me today to help muddle through everything and understand what happened and what we might be looking at for 2021. Before we get to it, maybe you guys want to start by introducing yourselves to our audience. Yifan, you want to start?
Okay. My name is Yifan He, and I'm the CEO and the founder of Red Tech. And Red Technology is one of the 4 founding members of BSN. And we basically take care of BSN's daily maintenance and operations, and also involved in the R&D process.
Thank you, Yifan. And David, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. I am David Shin. I'm based in Singapore, as mentioned earlier. I'm the Asia head for an entity in Singapore called TZ APAC. TZ APAC is the adoption entity in Asia for the Tezos Foundation, which is based in Zug, Switzerland. So our role is really to increase adoption across the region with developers, enterprise, etc. And yeah, I'm excited to be here and talk about 2020 and what's to come in 2021. So thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us, David. Up next, I'm going to pick Sean. Sean, do you want to tell us about yourself?
Yeah, certainly. Hi, everyone. My name is Sean Lee. I'm the CEO of the Algorand Foundation. I'm based out of Hong Kong. We're very glad to be here, joined by this panel, talking about what has happened in 2020 and obviously what we're working on in terms of 2021. Just for those of you who may not know, Algorand is a project started by Silvio Micali, a very renowned photographer out of MIT. So as far as the foundation is concerned, we're predominantly focused around ecosystem development, as well as managing the treasury tokens in regards to the economic aspect of it, and also identifying opportunities for a broader community adoption.
All right, thank you, Sean. And finally, we have Chris from Solana. Tell us about yourself, Chris.
Sure, my name is Chris. I cover business development and marketing and community in Asia. I used to work for Accenture before entering the blockchain space as an investment manager at Wanxiang. So now, before that, I travel a lot between Korea and Japan, China, and North America in finding like quality projects. So Solana is a high performance layer 1 project that has extremely high TPS, high throughput, low latency, and low transactional costs. So my job is to spread awareness of Solana in Chinese and Korean community and drive adoption. And thanks for having me.
Thank you, Chris. All right, so as I do every day, today I check Bitcoin's price. And right now we are at $23,989.33. So before that, we were kind of pushing the 20,000 mark, and then it was dropping, and now we've gone over 20,000. So we're clearly in a bull market, and everyone is really excited, and everyone and their mothers want to buy Bitcoin now. So David, can you tell us a little bit about how that has affected your business?
Yeah, I think when the general exuberance level is quite high and there's a bull market, people generally will start garnering a lot more interest, and I think that's a positive thing. So we're particularly, to be very specific, particularly in the area that we tend to focus in on around enterprise adoption and ensuring that we're working with the right corporate partnerships and whatnot, financial institutions, etc. I think in a market like this, where there's a lot of chatter around whether or not this sort of second bull run that we're seeing is here to stay, and whether it's a good thing for the legitimization of digital assets as a whole. I just like the conversation a lot better this time around than back in 2017, which was really driven by the ICO bubble. It seems a little more sustainable, but also the conversations at the table with a lot of these enterprises seem a little bit more real, and they seem to be a little bit more committed with respect to their budgets. So that's how it impacts us, because we tend to focus in on that area. I guess with the other area of adoption that we tend to look at, which is developers, the bull run is great, because I think it creates a level of not just emotional sort of exuberance, but also I think people are really believing that this thing is going to be hanging around for a while. Like I said, same thing with the enterprises. So that creates a lot more interest in wanting to build more on Tezos, to look at various ways of holding XTZ, and overall the market sentiment, I think, whether it's retail or institutional, has been quite good because of it.
Mm-hmm. Has that been your observation, guys? Anyone else wants to jump in on this?
Yeah, maybe I'll quickly jump in as well. I echo what David mentioned. I think this whole bull run really started, in the probably around the summer timeframe with the DeFi run, and then now it's the Bitcoin run. So I think a lot of this is bringing a lot of conversations, really legitimate conversations in the blockchain and crypto space. I think from our side, we're seeing a lot of interest in stablecoins and in various different currency formats, and obviously as a project, we're also involved in quite a few central bank digital currency projects as well. So I think if you combine what David was mentioning on the enterprise side, on the developer angle, and then also on the government side, then you really do see this groundswell of positive momentum driving it up. Whether it's the market or not, I think the technology, there's some realization that this is here to stay. And obviously with projects like BSN and a country like China, backing behind it, that's really only going to shoot it into the level where I think this is definitely going to be the next wave of capabilities and technology that people adopt.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned interest in stable coins. So we were talking about Bitcoin now, but how do you think other coins have reacted to the bull market?
Maybe I'll just quickly jump in and then pass it off to my panelists as well. Obviously, rising sea lift all boats, right? So when Bitcoin goes up, you see lots of pluses and green signs, across the board. And then when it goes down, then it goes the other way. So I think from a market momentum perspective, it is certainly trending in the right direction. There's no doubt about it. But I think in general, though, there's a realization that, you have the crypto assets, but then people, in general, from a commercial perspective, still very much want to rely on some form that can be pegged into the real currencies. I think that's really where some of the stablecoin entries are really coming in. There obviously for the last few years, there's been a lot of push into the USD pegged stablecoin market, but now we're seeing quite a few countries that are coming up with their own, or companies in different countries coming up with their own stable coin that are pegged to the local currencies. And you can really start to see that momentum really building. Perhaps there's going to be some sort of an FX kind of trading marketplace based on various different stable coins that will exist, along with all of the various different country-driven CBDC projects. I think both of these are going to go in parallel for some time. I don't think it's really a one or the other kind of environment, but obviously this market moves very quickly, so it remains to be seen how that's going to get played out.
So do you guys think that this market environment will last into 2021? Chris, maybe you want to give us your thoughts on this.
Sure, just to jump in a little bit, I think this bull rally is completely different from the one that we saw in 2017. To summarize, I feel like the market has changed from speculators to allocators. Since if we look at January, we have a 6-to-1 ratio of derivative traders to spot traders. But now that number has gone down to 3-to-1. So spot volume has almost tripled. And what does that mean? That means we have a better version of price discovery. So we have more institutional buyers than retail levered buyers. So Bitcoin is slowly transitioning into a macro asset that institutions use to hedge against the debasement of fiat currencies. So with that, we're going to see like a rise of awareness, not just within the Bitcoin, but also in altcoins as well. So this is helping developers take a second look at blockchain technology. And we've also noticed that companies with large user bases are also starting to introduce blockchain elements into the networks. So for a project like us, like Solana with high performance layer 1, it's quite easy for us to meet the performance standards of these new blockchain initiatives. So therefore, we've reached a lot of more partnerships, integrations, and we predict that this number all will increase in a faster speed.
I see. So you guys think it's looking good for 2021, and to summarize, you think that this is no longer a speculative market, but we're seeing this really maturing into something that will last for a while. And I guess I would also add that Ethereum prices are also really interesting to watch, and now what is happening with the Ethereum update, and like potentially we will see that gaining a lot more value in the next year, perhaps. But that is speculation. So probably like, the thing that has characterized everyone's year the most is COVID-19, which was something of a slap in the face that no one really expected. In my experience, reporting on blockchain, it's actually a very international industry, and it is somewhere where the projects are really spread out around the world. So how has this affected like your company and how you've been working? And do you think it will continue affecting you in 2021? Maybe I will ask David to answer this question, and we can go in a rotation.
Yeah, sure. I'd love to hear Yifan's voice at some point, because I know he's got a tremendous amount of insight in this stuff. But yeah, I'll go real quickly. For us, like everyone else, we had a pretty interesting book of work or roadmap for events and activities, which obviously for most blockchains and foundations, that's a key part of your strategy if you want to be, building brand awareness and developer engagement. So we, like everyone else, had to revert to Zoom and all the digital tools that we have to use. And so, it works, but it's just not the same as, going to being at a conference and engaging with people directly, or sharing ideas, over a lunch or dinner, which we've not been able to do, or just, fly to a different location and meet communities in, other parts of Asia for us. So, yeah, it's been a bit of a bummer, but we're looking forward rather than backwards. We think 2021 is going to be a lot better, but we also think that we have been able to come up with creative ways that are cost effective as well, I must say, in engaging our communities, both enterprise and developer, as well as sort of the retail community. So lots of learning that's happened on the fly in 2020. I think we can all probably agree to that. But it's just great to see that people's perseverance and willingness and determination to not let it take us completely away from the focus has been really good. And so hopefully we can take that momentum into 2021.
So before I give the mic to Yifan, can you tell us specifically what were those creative ways, David, that you found to engage with your communities?
Conferences, being at conferences and, sponsoring conferences as an example. I've learned there are creative ways to get your brand and your marketing out to the masses with online conferences done over Zoom. That's one thing. I wasn't totally bullish that was a very good way of investing in getting brand awareness out at the conferences. But it's actually been pretty effective. We've been tracking the hit rates on that, and it's been pretty effective. And some of the conversion in terms of what they've generated with respect to business opportunities or partnerships, et cetera, it's been pretty effective. So, I've learned there, and, that's something that we can continue to use going forward. The other thing too is just in terms of, having more events done online, whether it's with developers and doing, events where it's a hackathon or what have you. Developer engagement it has been a little bit more interesting, I would say, than the conferences, in the sense that, a lot of them, they don't like showing up to main events anyway. So we're finding that through some of the engagements we've done, we've had actually quite a good turnout, whether it was, at some of the events that we've led online, or even some of the meetings that meetups that we've done through Zoom. We were quite surprised that people would show up. And I think part of it is because you can still remain anonymous. You can still sort of have that ability to turn your camera off and not talk, but be at the event. Whereas, if you're doing a physical event, or you're forced to be at a conference where you're looking at people, a lot of times some people, they're not as comfortable with that. So little things like that, but, observations that we've made that will carry forward into 2021.
Mm-hmm. And Yifan, David said he wants to hear from you. So what are your experiences on COVID? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry. Actually, for most part of 2020, we focused on the development. So I mean, the COVID-19 has really impacted us negatively. So, but I think there's a very good side of this. Before 2020, the Chinese companies, Chinese government, they don't really do any video conference. Okay, I never saw one single one in 15 years in China doing business. Okay, but in 2020, everybody got used to it. I think a huge plus from all the problems, all the negativities, and because when you're working with some SOEs and the governments, they intend to meet you face to face. Sometimes happened many times. Took me 2 days. Spend 2 days go to some city, and then 10 minutes conversation, it's done. So right now we save a lot of money on travel and that kind of thing, and we can almost every single time we say, okay, let's just do a video conference. 99% people agree to it. I think in a long run, it really changes the way to do business in China. I think it's much more efficient, and it's just from my perspective, it's a plus. But I still think the COVID-19 has a huge negative impact on the economy, everything. I see many small and medium companies went under. Okay, in past 6 months, But I think on the bright side, it also forced people to change their regular ways to live and to communicate and to hold conference to have meetings. So I also think probably in next year, the whole year, probably it will stay the same. So for 2 years, I think this thing is really changed the humankind. Okay, so there's a lot of bad sides, but there's also bright sides we can think we need probably in next 2 years we need to leverage the bad sides and convert them into something good. I think that's something we should do. Okay.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Sean? How was your experience with COVID?
I think David and Ivan covered a lot of what we're experiencing as well. There are challenges of being, online versus in person. That's for sure. I still have some team members that have told me they've never met me in person. So some of them are wondering how tall I am, right? Because we're always sitting, so you can't really tell the personal kind of look. But I think on the positive side though, the last 9 months, 10 months have really accelerated a lot of digital adoptions. And I think when we think about digital adoptions in 2019 and before, it had a lot to do with kind of mobile technology, right? So doing everything on a mobile device. But that's really, for those of us that are in the industry, that's really on the interface side of things. Now people are really thinking about what happens in the back end. How does that process, both from a monetary perspective, from a transaction perspective, and from a relationship perspective, how can that fundamentally be changed in a digital way? I think Yifan just talked about human interactions, right? Especially in a place like China where traditional face-to-face meeting and a handshake is still very important. But I think people are now, it's long enough that the adoption have changed as well. And I think, in Hong Kong here, this is one of those places where it's a developed world, but most people still would prefer to handle cash for some reason. But the last 9 months or 10 months, everybody is now using mobile phone. Everybody is now doing, Alipay, WePay, or the Octopus card here, which is the digital form of payment. So you could see that kind of human behavior changing, and the adoption is changing really more rapidly towards the digital side of things. And I think that's obviously from a blockchain and crypto and digital currency perspective, that's really going to have a very big impact. And we're seeing lots of changes in those areas, especially projects that we're working on.
Mm-hmm. So I was going to ask you actually whether you've seen companies being eager to adopt blockchain now that everything is becoming digital, and as you say, a lot of things are changing, and pretty much everyone that has an online platform, including Zoom, on which we're on, they've had to handle a lot more traffic than they were designed for. But on the other hand, and I don't know if you guys want to tackle this question, maybe it's a little bit too macro. Perhaps I think it's quite different in Europe and the US than in Asia, because especially in China, we haven't had prolonged lockdowns. It's been pretty okay, and there has been an economic impact, but it's not going to be as big, at least as a result of the lockdowns as in other countries. So do you see the 2021? How do you see the 2021 economic downturn, let's say global downturn, competing with this like increased need of digitization and like having better processes within your company and better data management, to put it simply, which is something that is quite affects the demand for enterprise blockchain? I don't know who wants to tackle this question. Perhaps it's a little too macro, but anyone wants to take a stab at it, feel free.
We haven't heard from Chris in a while. Chris, you want to?
Oh, Chris, you're muted.
Chris, you're on mute.
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
Sorry. Yeah, can you hear me now? Yeah. I think the advantage of going last is because like everybody has covered like 90%. I'm trying to say but maybe I just go off what Sean said a little bit more, because our Solana's goal was to grow out the developer ecosystem, and it was really key, essential to find people who are interested in blockchain entrepreneurs, and there is no really shortcut to it. It takes a lot of consistency, and we're trying to move fast but stay secure at the same time. Well, with the pandemic, it's really hard to meet people in person, and host conferences per se. But I think it's not just challenges, but also opportunities in a way, that like during the quarantines, people have more screen time and higher mobilization, as what Sean said. So it's really helped us grow our online community. For example, during our hackathon for Wormhole, we received more than 1,000 registrations and over 80 submissions. This is just like bananas during like regular days, right? So based on what my dev friend told me, the time wasted in human interaction is now gone. So they can really focus on building really cool features on top of Solana. So I think that's a win for us during the COVID-19.
Are you guys worried at all in about 2021, whether there will be a sort of downturn and whether that will affect your business? Maybe Chris, since you want to go first, so maybe you can try to answer this question.
Oh no, I'm fine going last, but sure. Sure. I mean, I think blockchain is in general is not that hurt by the global pandemic, because I think COVID really causes the banks to print more money, and that just benefits the crypto in general. So our goal is to really stick with our mission, spreading awareness and bringing more projects on board to Solana. And we want to move fast, but also stay secure at the same time. So I think a key purpose for us for next year is really to build out our infrastructure more so that it has higher performance and higher decentralization. But meanwhile, we can tackle the greatest problem of getting more projects on board our ecosystem.
What about you, Ifan? I know BSN wants to be a very global platform. So are you concerned at all about what 2021 will bring as a ripple effect to COVID? Well, the continued pandemic in the rest of the world.
Not really. And first, we don't actually make any money now. So what's the worst that it can go? So it will stay same next year. So, but personally, I still think it's still a little bit early for the enterprise adoption of blockchain technology. And personally, I still think especially in China, and because we couldn't do anything related to public chains here, and so that's why I think for enterprise adoption, probably the CBDC will come out probably next year, and it will take another 3 years for the third party infrastructure can access the CBDC wallets, and I still think by then the enterprise adoption will happen. Okay, it's massively will happen. It's just like for the Alipay and the WeChat Pay, because those came out like 10 years ago. Then there's a lot of business built around them, and that's why we have mobile industry in China really booms. There's a large number of public companies built around that kind of industry. So that's why in next year in China, people still learning what blockchain is, and some. But one thing is the government next year will spend more money on blockchain. They there won't be really some new business model or something like that, but the government will spend money to try the technology. I think that will happen next year in China, but I think that will be still small, and we will do what we have done this year and continue next year. That's it.
What about you, David and Sean? How did you see enterprise adoption progress in Hong Kong and Singapore respectively this year, and what do you expect for 2021? Whoever wants to go first, go for it.
All right, I'll quickly go. I'm sure David and I probably share similar views as well. I think enterprise adoption is going to come. I think most of the enterprise are certainly dabbling in various different type of use cases that at this moment is probably most applicable using blockchain technologies. So as they get more comfortable, I mean, I think all of us have worked with enterprises before. They take time, right? There are lots of legacy that they got to think about. There's data protection, there's privacy issues that they have to think about. So a lot of these things will take time. So you may see some disparate use cases here and there, letter of credits, mortgages potentially, but you're not going to see really widespread adoption on blockchain yet. But the good thing is, I think we are, seeing certainly lots of interest, especially within kind of the innovation arm within, certain bank or certain manufacturing companies where they want to try things, and that's always very healthy. The more they want to try, the more they're building, applicable use cases, and the more kind of the startup community, like Chris talked about before, the startup community coming up with these newer innovation ideas to solve existing problems or make them better. I think that whole groundswell is going to happen. So whether it's Hong Kong or Singapore or really anywhere else in the world, I think we're seeing that slow adoption, but from an enterprise side, it will take 3, 4, 5 years at a minimum, right? But I think what will happen though, maybe I'll end this and before I pass to David, I think if the government and the regulators take quicker time, around blockchain and crypto, compared to what they've done in the past with things like cloud computing and whatnot, if they are able to jump on board faster and give more clarity on where they would like to see things go, especially from a cross-border perspective, I think that will help facilitate enterprise adoption much faster.
Mm-hmm.
I'll pass it to David.
My 5 cents on it is that people they stroke a broad brush when it comes to enterprise adoption, but I think you have to be able to break it down and look at it in different use cases. Do I see high enterprise adoption in healthcare? No. Do I see it in finance? Absolutely. And so if finance being my background, I was in investment banking for almost 20 years. I see a lot of problems in the banks and at the global, where capital is concentrated. And I think people are getting smart enough now that they're starting to realize that, at some stage we need to have a more distributed capital outlay globally. And so a few things are going to drive that. It's not just the tech, which these drivers will then create faster adoption in this particular finance use case. So one example, one driver of that is the de-dollarization of the world. These are all things that you can read about in the news, but governments have, they haven't been shy about it. They don't want to be holding so much US dollar going forward. I think China's been pretty open about it. Russia, even the European countries have been pretty open to it. They were creating separate entities to, bifurcate SWIFT to buy Iranian oil at one point, because they didn't feel that the embargoes that the Americans put on the Iranians for their oil was fair. So, I think we're going to continue to see those geopolitical aspects of this, and the way that I believe the solutions will come is not necessarily by creating more traditional railways to distribute this capital and de-dollarize. I think they'll see this as an opportunity, they being the governments to central banks, they'll see it as an opportunity to flip the switch and start moving towards a digital currency, which goes back to what Sean was saying. And that drive, I think it'll be the first time in my life anyway, and I'm 45, where I will see governments leading innovation, financial innovation, ahead of the private sector. And I think the banks will be forced to come to the table, and we're already starting to see some of that. And so, yeah, I mean, that kind of excites me. And I think that adoption will happen faster than, let's say, healthcare or supply chain or any of these other enterprise use cases. Yeah, so that would be my reply.
Okay, I want to jump in and say a little bit regarding the adoption. First, the purpose of BSN is actually basically it's targeting adoption of blockchain technology to the individuals, small and medium companies, because I really believe when those individual and small and medium company can try this kind of technology, then it will move to the big corporations, and just like what internet did. So to further that, and we actually launching 2 new projects into 2021. Okay, I probably haven't talked to David and Sean about this. Those 2 actually is still targeting to make the massive adoption of the blockchain. The first one is we call that CBDC public chains. Because when I talk with a lot of enterprise and the banks, right now they are really reluctant to really run their application on public chains. I mean, if I'm wrong, David, Sean, and Chris, you guys can say something. And because when they run some kind of application for their traditional business, the income they receive actually is fair money, right? But when they run some application on public chain, the cost is crypto. So then it doesn't kind of make sense because it cannot control the cost. It could triple next year. So and right now all the applications that make business sense is like the DeFi, like the income is crypto and the cost is crypto, then it makes sense. So that means for some enterprise, large enterprise and banks, when they really adopt public chain technology, they want to treat that just as a cloud services, which means what they want to pay is just the cost for cloud services. So that's why we come up with this idea is there will be some kind of public chain just using CBDC and the stablecoin, because when people run application on those kind of chains, they only pay for the resources. So all the nodes, super node owners, they will split for the income, because all the revenue paid for the gas is split for all the whoever owns the nodes. So it's very low profit, okay, business, but I think that will happen. So we are actually talking with different chains, not you guys. I just realized, okay, say is that possible working with some chains to at least explore the possibility for that kind of business model and the public chain ecosystem. So that's the first one we are starting right now. The second one is actually we want to build we call that universal digital payment network on top of BSN, which means we actually build a universal wallet, just like the WeChat Pay and Alipay. It's actually a account, but the link all the wallets, like a WeChat Pay, they link all the bank account. We link all the stablecoin account and the future CBDC account. So which means, but this network only serves the enterprise, the IT systems. So basically, people can open a wallet on this network and call this wallet to open wallet for their own user and transfer money between the wallets and with the stablecoin and the CBDC will adopt. So it's like Strap. It's like WeChat Pay, but it's only targeting the digital currencies. So we think that's actually, I said before, it's when the enterprise adoption happens, it will happen around payment systems. When a company can wire money with digital currency, then they will build a system and applications around that. Okay, that will, because most of the digital currency will be based on the blockchain technology. Some of still centralized system, but the circulation will still be on blockchain. So that's why we are building, this universal digital payment network to really push that forward. Even there's no CDBC yet, but we want to build that to be ready. We can always plug in them, but we will launch the probably USDT next year with this wallet, and also for the CBDC public chains. What your opinion from you guys? I want to hear the opinion from you.
I think this is very much aligned with our mission, right? So if we look at the entire GDP, 20% of the total GDP goes into like financial services, and a lot of it is spent on inefficient manpowers. So if we can develop a system that cannot be hacked and there's no fraud, we can start moving some of those features into that software. So if we succeed, if you and I succeed, I think people will be able to just work 40 hours 5 and still live happily. So I think we do see a huge opportunity in payment and financial services that's truly decentralized. And I think just small advertisement. I think FTX is building Serum on top of Solana, and it's the first completely decentralized derivatives exchange that has a very, very low transaction cost of 0.0001 cent US dollar per transaction. So I think this is just the beginning of an entire ecosystem that we see on decentralized financial services. So yeah, so we can talk more.
Anyone else want to jump in, guys?
I think
Give some feedback.
Talk a bit about the stable coins already. So that's obviously quite in line with what Yifan just talked about as well. Obviously, for a project like Algorand, our goal is to be able to bring as many assets on chain as possible from a transactional perspective, and with a lot of the stablecoin entries that we're now having in terms of project launch on Algorand, that makes it for an interesting aspect in terms of what we can now do with it, right? Obviously, launching a stablecoin on network, it's great, but if it doesn't really have liquidity or practical usage of it, then it's just another assets on chain, right? So the goal is, once we're able to bring various different currencies in terms of stablecoins on there, along with the CBDCs that will be launched later on, then that can create think about it like an alternative SWIFT, right? In a sense, whereby you can now enable for many interesting but much lower latency cross-border payments type of use cases. And if you're talking about those type of use cases, then they can really cut across any industry. Shipping, trading, logistics, all of that would be related on top of finance, obviously. So I think, for projects like ours, I'm sure Solana and Tezos and others are feeling the same way. This is, the pie is so large that is not for any one of our projects to take them all, right? It is all for us to work on the areas that we're working on, projects and collaborate where we can, so that the broader industry can really take off, like what we've seen, last 20, 30 years in various different industries and economies, really going into new places. And I think it takes all of us to, put the fundamental pieces in place and each do our part, so we can see where this next wave is going to go.
I see. David, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, Yifan, I did hear about the payments layer that you guys are looking to do. Speaking of Michael, I was aware of that. I think that's the right thing to do. Great idea. To me, it's really really about building stacks. The next natural stack on top of this interoperable global blockchain that, or network, sorry, I should say, that BSN is creating, is to add, the next layer, which will be payments, and then on top of that, what could be, credit products like lending, and then on top of that could be derivatives. But really, we're building markets here through tech, and I think that's relevant and important. Just one comment I would make around why I believe the digitization of assets, particularly currencies, are quite relevant and important, is because the way that the traditional banking networks are set up, they're set up in such a way where they're fragmented, so that you are meant to pay tolls. So if I'm trying to send money from Singapore to Shanghai, there is the China-based banking networks that allow you to transfer money onshore quickly, cheap, very easily. And same thing in Singapore, we have something called Pay Now, and the network here locally makes it very easy for me to transfer money locally onshore. But to do that hop, I need to connect through another intermediary bank. And this is something that you all know about and you've heard about over the years with blockchain, and Ripple's making a big push around this stuff as well. But why it's important from more of a wider angle lens of digital currencies is because, or CBDCs, is because when you get into looking at the peer-to-peer CBDC transaction, you're essentially talking about 0-day settlement, so instant settlement. And to go back to my point on why the banks have been fragmented, part of it, in my mind, is it was architected that way so that they can collect the transactions over an intraday period. So I was always wondering why it took me, like 5 to 7 business days to send money back home to Canada to my mother. At the end of the day, it really shouldn't take that long. I worked at the banks. I saw, what the larger SWIFT accounts could do, from Nostro account to Nostro account, they can send money pretty quickly. But why did it take me 5 to 7 days? So a lot of that, when you look deeper into it, the banks are collecting all these intraday transactions. And what they do is they build a pool of deposits, essentially, that they hold for an overnight or a period of days. And they lend that to each other, right? And so that's what we call the short-term lending market. And we've seen historically where with LIBOR scandals at the banks, I'm sure you've heard of LIBOR, which is the London Interbank acceptance, offer rate. LIBOR is essentially the rates that the banks charge each other for borrowing short-term money. And so we're talking overnight borrowing, or, a couple of days, or very short-term liquidity on lending. And they make a lot of money off that. There's a handful of what I would call traditional pillar banks, global intermediary banks, that, whether it's the Citibanks, HSBCs, et cetera, they make a lot of money off this. So there's a reason why they never really acknowledged or wanted to acknowledge Bitcoin or any of the other digital currencies, because what they would acknowledge is instant or 0-day settlement, which means that you're killing their intraday lending market effectively, if you look at it from a bigger picture. So this is, it's phenomenal, right? What we're moving into is, I believe, something that is completely not just transformational, but, we are literally shifting silos of how businesses are going to be done, especially at the banking level. And so, whether it's stable coins or CBDCs in particular, I think it serves a huge relevance in, the direction that we're going in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would not want to be a banker maybe right now. Especially seeing the bull run. But for now, I think that they're probably pretty safe. So thank you so much, Yifan, for sharing this. I wonder if any of you guys have any goals you have, any milestones you have that you're setting yourselves, well, not personally, your company, for 2021. Is there anything that we should anticipate from you? I know, Chris, you mentioned that Solana wants to work on infrastructure. Are there any particular goalposts that you're trying to achieve in the next year?
Right. I briefly mentioned about we want to build out our infrastructure to increase the TPS even further, and in a more decentralized manner by introducing new nodes. But our key one of our greatest goals is to cultivate the Asia market as well. So maybe through our collaboration with BSN, we can get more access to developer communities and also enterprises that seek blockchain high performance solutions. So like right now, we're working very closely with some of the top DeFi projects. Like for example, Chainlink is building an incredibly fast Oracle on top of Solana. And there's a project like Audius is building like the decentralized Spotify on Solana, and Terra is also a stablecoin, right? So for common point of sale payments, usually require settlement within 2.5 seconds, but Terra is able to get optimist finality within just 1 second. So that's a huge improvement of performance in terms of the stablecoin itself. So we look for this kind of partnerships that are both from blockchain and from traditional enterprises in the upcoming year.
And Sean, is there anything we should be anticipating from Algorand?
Yeah, well, I mean, in terms of Algorand, obviously, we'll continue our advancements in technology. Chris touch upon some of the performance improvement that they're working on with Solana. We're doing something very similar. So I think everyone is pushing. Competition is good, right? Everyone is pushing ahead, and we're only going to all do more together. I think Yifan also talked about kind of the enterprises looking at adopting blockchain and whether they continue down the path with private chains or some hybrid type of chain, with public and private. That's obviously something that will get played out. We're building on what we call the co-chain, which is kind of that notion of a hybrid chain. It's particularly useful for private enterprises as well as governance as well. So I think that's a little bit on the technology. But the part that I do really want to cover though is, we're coming out of 2020, a COVID-19 year. The world is in a very disruptive mode. So when we released our algodynamic model just a couple of weeks back, we specifically allocated a certain amount of our financial resources going directly into social good programs. I think that's quite important in today's world. We can talk all about the fancy use cases here and there, and that's great because that's going to drive the market and the industry forward. But there's still a large portion of the population around the world where they can leverage the technology and they can leverage these newer thinkings, not for fancy things, but for rudimentary things, right? Delivering humanitarian aid in a more efficient manner. Serving a lot of the unbanked populations that are still, exist all over around the world. So, part of what we're going to be doing at the foundation is really thinking about how can we use these resources that we have and the technology that underpins it, and be able to, really create and go after these, social good, public good initiatives, and really be able to do our parts. Our small parts, in helping move the world in a better place. So I think on the technology side we covered that, but this is near and dear to my heart in terms of what we're trying to do at the foundation in 2021, and we're going to look for further collaboration with all of you here, and obviously with Yifan on the BSN side as well.
Thank you, Sean. That's really wonderful to hear. I hope everyone has plans like this for 2021. David, do you have such plans? Not to put you on the spot or anything, but if you don't, that's okay. You can tell us about your other plans.
Yeah, from a Tesla's angle, we are, our goal for at least the first half of 2021 is to try and get more bakers in Asia onto our network. Bakers being node validators. As you know, Tesla's is a proof of stake blockchain, and so we have, we're very interested in trying to find good teams good organizations to set up bakeries on the network in Asia. So that's the first thing. The second thing is obviously working with Yifan and Michael Sung as it relates to BSN, and you know, we see this as a huge partnership for us here for Tezos in Asia. You know, at the end of the day, it's really about aligning, you know, aligning with teams that have the right level of access, but also who have the right mindset as a team in terms of what they're trying to do with the tech. And we feel that we align with Yifan and his team and Michael in many ways. So we'll continue to do that. Specifically, I think the first thing on the you know, on the cards is we have been speaking to BSN about the permissioned network and to connect there in China. We've been a little bit delayed because our team is working on a private version of Tezos, which is pretty much near completion. And so we'll pick up on that conversation and hopefully get that connected, a permission version of Tezos onshore in China for the first quarter of next year.
Okay, well, I look forward to seeing it around China. So just because I think we're about to wrap up, we're almost at an hour. This question might take us to the hour mark. So what do you think about public chain adoption in general, and how do you think that works with the regulatory frameworks and regulatory changes that we've seen across the world, really? So it's really two questions. One is, have you seen public chains becoming more popular or less popular? And what do you see for them in 2021? And secondly, how has regulation changed in the markets that you guys operate? I'm going to ask, I guess, Yifan, since he went first, the last question.
Yeah. Okay. Next year in 2021, it's besides universal digital payment network I mentioned, another big job for us is bringing the foreign blockchain technology into China. Okay, including public chains, just like Sean and David mentioned. You know, we are launching the open permission chain in China on BSN in China. That's specifically in China. And basically, is we convert the public chain into a permission version, and also deploy on the BSN China. And but when the developer to deploy dApps, it's very similar to public chain, but the way they pay for the gas is the fair money. Okay, so we need to basically, you know, handle that technically. But I still think in the future, just like Sean mentioned, it will be like something like hyper. Okay, like David just mentioned, you know, it's the Tezos and all those public chains. Actually, all, you know, many chains I know is working on the private version. Okay, because right now there definitely will be a private, you know, permission blockchain industry in the future. Okay, just like I said, the public chain doesn't really fit in so many business scenarios because the cost is crypto, and so I believe, you know, the public chain will stay the same. I don't think there will be less usage. I think that still will be more and more user cases, more and more. But the permission chain will also, you know, advance, because I see, you know, a lot of banks and the enterprises, when they try blockchain technology, the permission is still the first one they try. And also, I still want to emphasize there will be something like the CBDC public chain. It's still public chain, but the people don't pay that, don't involve cryptocurrencies. They use fair money for pay for the gas. So there will be, you know, the left side, right side, and there's a middle ground. So I think that will be the landscape of the blockchain industry in 10 years.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Sean?
Well, I mean, we're a public chain project, so obviously we see lots of potential and continuing movement into the public chain. But like I said, I do believe that there are, you know, different type of implementation serves different companies and different industry at different time. I think in the longer run, we're not really going to be calling it public chain or private chain. It's just a blockchain, right? Whether it's being used for this type of use cases or not, it doesn't matter. Like we've seen it the last 10, 15 years or so, when people were talking about cloud computing, like people are so hung up on private cloud, public cloud, hybrid cloud, all kinds of different cloud. I mean, now it's just cloud, right? It's just a place to do business and it's a place to host apps. And I think we're going to see blockchain evolving in a very similar way. It's just a new way to host your decentralized app and to run transactions and various different activities on chain in a very different manner than how it's being done right now. So whether it's public or private, I think we're still having that, not so much debate, but we're still having that nomenclature at the moment. I do believe in a few years' time, no one cares anymore. It's just chain. It's just
I
blockchain.
totally agree. Totally agree.
I agree with John, and what I think what is really important is the ability to build out applications, right? So nobody cares about what blockchain is. I think the good blockchain should stay invisible, and it should provide high performance in a way that is invisible to the developers as well. So I think while Solana itself is a public chain with high performance with over 50,000 transactions per second and 400 millisecond block propagation time. So in general, what we're trying to accomplish here is that we want to bring traditional enterprises on board the public chain as well, so they can explore the decentralized side of the business. I think another interesting thing that we can explore is interoperability between different chains. So maybe Solana can one day can talk to Algorand as well. So that's why we started this thing called Wormhole. It's essentially a bi-directional bridge that connects Ethereum with Solana. So now community and project developers can move the tokenized assets across different chains with very low cost and still get the benefit of the high speed of Solana. So interoperability and applications are something that I would look at for public chains.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, interoperability has been gained a lot of traction in 2020 and probably in 2021. And it's also a very technical challenge, which I cannot begin to tackle myself. But yeah, we really are seeing a lot of movement in space, and of course, BSN has been a major driver in this. So what about you, David? Maybe you want to. We spoke briefly before we started about regulation, and I know Singapore has had the new payments regulation. So how have you seen that change in 2020, and what are you looking for in 2021?
Well, just keeping my finger to the pulse, I'm already seeing lots of US-based companies setting up offices in Singapore over 2020. Or others who had operations out here in Japan or Korea moving to open up an office in Singapore. Some of it is related to getting a license to be able to become security token issuers and exchanges, but a lot of it actually is more for the access to what they believe is more of the corporate use case type of access here out of Singapore. I think Singapore, if you look at the DBSs, Standard Chartered Banks, SGXs, whether it's government sort of initiated or whether it's them realizing, having a light bulb moment that they need to get more involved, they've really been sort of taking a leadership role out of some of the other larger institutions that are out there and getting involved. Particularly those two banks, I think, have been quite interesting over the course of 2020 in terms of what they're looking to do. So yeah, look, I mean, the holistic view of Singapore, i.e. regulation, i.e. corporate access, i.e. the technology companies that are setting up here, we're here out of Singapore. I believe Algorand, is set up out of Singapore. So, and the BSN International Foundation looks like they will be setting up out of Singapore. I think it just speaks volumes to where the direction of the market is going here locally in Singapore.
Yifan, have you seen any big changes in regulation in China?
No, because it's already, it's for public chains, it's dead here, okay? Because there's no way you can run a public chain in China. Two reasons. One, cryptocurrency is not accepted as a legal financial product. If you run that, it's basically criminal, okay? The second one is there's a regulation for information control, okay, in China. And for public chains, the government really couldn't control the information flow on public chains. So that's the second reason. Actually, the most important reason. Public chain couldn't really run in China. Yeah, but open permission chain can. Okay, because it's under control.
Mm-hmm. I see. Anyone else wants to, Chris or Sean? You guys want to talk about the regulatory environment before we wrap up? Oh, Chris, I see you nodding, but I can't hear you.
Oh, I think Yifan covered like 90% of what I was trying to say, because we stay in the same region, and then basically exchange is now regulated. So I treat Huobi and several exchanges like as having a government node in it, so they can monitor all like the money and have AML precautions. And projects are okay, but it's really hard to market the token itself. So I mean, the blockchain without a token is not a blockchain. So that could be hard for public native Chinese-born blockchains.
A public chain without the crypto is not a public chain. I think that
yeah, sorry, that's what I meant.
Yeah. I think, look, I think the panelists all cover pretty much all of it. Here in Hong Kong, we see similar things as well. Licenses are now required for exchanges and marketplaces that are operating in pretty open manners previously, but now regulations are coming in, and I think it's good, right? As long as the regulators are up to beat, they understand where things are, they still allow room for innovation, but at the same time, really protect all parties that are involved. It's always a healthy development. So I think it is good that various different jurisdictions are upping their game in that sense, but also talking to each other, and that makes for more consistency across the board.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's hope that we see more consistency in the next year. Thank you guys for joining me today. It's been really interesting talking to you and hearing your thoughts. Thank you for being honest and for giving us your insights. It's been really wonderful having you. If anyone wants to say any final words, now is the time to.
No, just happy holidays. Enjoy your time with your family. I know we can't really travel anywhere, but hopefully everyone have a safe and happy holidays till the end of the year.
Thank you, Sean. And David, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say very interesting conversation. I appreciate BSN for setting this up and Yifan hosting it, and wishing everyone a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. Best of luck to everyone on all their various projects for 2021. Thank you.
Thanks, David. You too.
I want to thank BSN for having us, and then I really value the relationship with BSN. I want in the BSN family, I want to explore more partnerships with local enterprises and provide solutions to these companies. So thanks for having us, and have a great day.
Thanks, Chris. And Yifan, any final words from you?
Yeah, thank you everybody for joining this call, and the most important thing, be healthy. Okay, that's the only thing I care about. so stay healthy, and Merry Christmas to all of you.
Thank you.
Yes, definitely. Stay healthy, wear a mask, and do blockchain, I guess. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks everyone for watching. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.